Jai Meher Baba. Thank you everyone for coming. This is going to be a wonderful celebration of Dr. Goher's life. So how it'll work today, we will have a few presentations already lined up, and then we're going to allow open sharing, and we will use the raise hand function so that we know that you will have something to share. There's going to be an order to who's speaking first. Karen is going to go first, Karen Talbot, and then Marnie Frank, and then Pratap Ahir. Laurel Magrini is going to read a letter. Sally and Patrick will share, and then Goher. I forget your last name, I'm sorry. I will come to that. And then we'll have open sharing after that. The chat box is very functional. It works very well. So if you want to private chat me, or when Ruth takes over, to private chat her, or you can raise your hand and you can speak to the whole group. All right, Jai Baba. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Karen. You're still muted, Karen?
Now
there you
can
go.
You hear me?
And now you're muted again.
It's okay now.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to share a little bit about Dr. Goher's life, and I'm so happy that we're having this tribute to Dr. Goher on the day of her passing to Baba. She was born on August 3rd, 1916, to Rustam or Rusipat and Khorshid Irani in northwest India, the town of Quetta. It's now in Pakistan. And just one quick thing is that when her mother, Baba asked, how many children do you have? And the mother said 7. Baba said, you have 5 children, I have 2. One of those was Dr. Goher, the other Katie. And so their lives were truly spent with Baba. Baba would come to Quetta and stay at their home. Dr. Goher's earliest recollection of Baba was very hazy when she was 6. But she has a very clear recollection when he came again when she was 15 years old. And at that time, Baba asked her if she would like to become a doctor. And she said yes, but her mother said, Baba, we have no money. How can this be? How can we afford to send her to school, medical school? And Baba said, not to worry, I will take care of all the tuition fees. And so Goher was very touched, but still in her teens. Her mother did agree, and when it was time, Baba had Chanji go and make arrangements with the Dada Chanji family in Bombay, which was where Goher would be living. Goher was very shy. She had never met or known of any Dada Chanjis. She very nervously knocked at their front door and could not believe the love that she received from the entire family. Arnavas was the eldest, but she was also still 2 years younger than Dr. Goher. And when the mother fed the family, she fed Dr. Goher first. And Dr. Goher could not believe the absolute pure love that was in that home. Baba would come to visit and stay quite often, but whenever he came, he always asked her, are you following my orders? After she finished school, Baba said she could join him and to go to Kakabaria's home in Bombay, where the women Mandali were. She then went with the women Mandali to Raipur, which is where Jal Karawala was from. And her job there was to be a go-between, a watch person for the women Mandali, and if it was needed, to go to the men's side. That was a job that Kitty and Rama would do, but in this instance, it was given to her. At that point, she had no medical experience. She was very unclear on Baba was God, so why would he have any ailments? But Baba explained he came to her on earth as a man, and that she should be very concerned and take them quite seriously. She felt she had no real experience, so she actually went to have a medical internship. She did this, but then it took a while for Baba to call her. In 1947, he finally did call her to come and live permanently at Marizad. And she came as a physician, but she felt Baba wanted her to be a little egoless. So he put her in charge of the care of the ducks and the chickens. One story she had that I'll share is that in order for them to have their food, Baba had to approve of everything that came from the bazaar. And one day they were low on bran, and she was very worried that they would not be fed and they wouldn't have enough. So she raced over to the meal. Now, at that time, Baba was talking with someone about the seventh plane. She said, no, we must have, please, order, we must have more bran. So Baba said, here I am talking on the seventh plane, and you bring me to the gross plane. So he explained to her in the future to please be a little bit more patient. And she said, how loving, how very loving, how kind, how compassionate, and how forgiving he was. In 1949, Baba began talking about the new life. He said the men would be given a choice, but he would choose 4 women. They knew that 2 of the women would be Mera and Mani, but who would the other 2 be? Dr. Goher felt very strongly she could not go back into the world. She didn't think she'd be chosen because others had been with Baba much longer. If she wasn't chosen, she felt that she would want to end her life. At one point, Baba came with Mera over to her at Marizad, and Baba asked about this. She told him. And then Baba said, Mera, tell Dr. Goher. And Mera said, you are one of the 4 that will be accompanying us. At that time, she said that was the happiest moment of her life. So she went on the new life. She was there in her capacity as a physician. In 1952, she went to the West with the women Mandali and the other Mandali for Baba's first visit to Myrtle Beach. She was there at the accident and again was able to offer her medical services. When they went back to Marizad, her bed was next to Baba's room. So while there were other physicians, and she talks about Dr. Gindi, there was Dr. Duncan, she was the one that really had the biggest impact and took the most care and was always there. Bao would talk about how they would wake her up throughout the night for any of Baba's immediate needs. In 1969, when Baba dropped the body, she felt very sad. She felt that none of the medications had helped him. She packed up her medications and brought them and gave them to the Salvation Army Hospital in Ahmednagar and felt she would no longer have much to do with medicine. But then they went to Pune for the Great Darshan, and she and Dr. Duncan were pulled into service to care for all the Westerners who came and had many ailments. When they got back to Marizad, there really wasn't a whole lot for them to do. So the Mandalis suggested that she start to see villagers because the villagers really didn't know much about Baba. They would come to Marizad and they could learn more about Meher Baba and think better. So Mera, they encouraged her. And Erich and Mani came to help. The first clinic was set up in Kakabaria's room, 10 by 10. She called it Schweitzer's Clinic. Within 2 years, she was so busy, they had to build a go-down to keep the medical supplies. And in the Mera and Mani help, they did bandaging, they did injections. Pendu, up till the very last of his life, took the case notes. Val was involved. Oliver made the tea. In 1970, Heather, Lindsay, Ralph Jackson came, and they started to assist as well. As time went by and she was so busy and so many more pilgrims were coming, Dr. Goher was very concerned that there would be too many illnesses from the villagers that might pass to the pilgrims. She went to Arnavas and said, do you think we might be able to build a larger clinic that would be a little bit further away from Mandali Hall and the verandas? And Arnavas agreed, and they built the clinic that most everyone is well aware of at Merazad. That clinic was functioning for many years into the mid-70s, but it began in February 1978. In 1999, they did a future plan for Merazad, and at that time, it was discussed to have a new clinic that would be further away from Merazad, but still on trust property. The last thing I want to mention is that Baba, when he had clinics, always wanted to be certain that all the medical care was given freely, all medications were given freely. However, the doctors would be paid. And that really has been a formula for these clinics that Goher initiated and kept. And so now Marnie would like to talk a little bit about Meher Fund and the clinic that is presently functioning. And thank you very much for listening, Jai Baba, and for being here.
Thank you, Karen. Jai Baba. Angela, thank you so much, and everyone who helped to organize this. It's just a wonderful tribute to Dr. Goher, who truly must have been one of Baba's great lovers. There's no question. And I have been asked to speak briefly about the Meher Fund, which many of you may know about, but some of you may not. It's the primary fundraising enterprise for the Meher Free Dispensary, and all the money is raised to support the service begun by Dr. Goher. This is really an essential endeavor because, as Karen explained, all the services that the dispensary offers are free to the patients. And this includes visits with the doctor, all lab tests and medications. And the cost per visit is about $5. The price may be going up a little bit since that, but it's around $5. In normal times, before the pandemic, the dispensary served about 132 persons per day, which is about 38,000 persons per year. So in 2019, that was the figure. Of course, since COVID-19 has turned the world upside down, that number has dropped to about 50 patients per day. But the dispensary continues to be an important service within its community, not only providing medical care to these patients who are able to get to the clinic, but all the staff have also recognized that there are needs within the surrounding community that they can address. And one of them is that there are hotspots of coronavirus infection in the Ahmednagar area. And in those places, people are under a very severe and strict lockdown. So the medical staff at the dispensary are delivering medicines to those patients. The staff are also distributing essential food provisions to about 90 families in the Happy Valley area who have no wages. They are under severe lockdown. They can't go to work. They have no income and are in desperate need. So this is a really important service that the staff are providing. And finally, the dispensary staff have also decided to donate regularly to two government relief funds. And this is an expression of solidarity with their community, with the dispensary's community. So as the attempts to address the challenges of COVID-19 change, Clearly, the dispensary is adapting to the unfolding needs of the patients. However, the service which Dr. Goher began continues today, and with that, so do the financial needs of the dispensary. So although fundraising is sometimes challenging, we on the Meher Fund board are inspired by Dr. Goher's vision and the fact that all donations to the Meher Fund go 100% to patient care. So I'm just going to share with you that if anyone is interested, if this inspires you at all, to donate to the effort that was actually inspired by Meher Baba, implemented by Dr. Goher, and continued by his lovers, you're welcome to go to the Meher Fund website, and all the information is there. So I thank you for giving us this chance to share with you the work that we're doing and the work that's going on in Dr. Goher's name. So I turn it back to you, Angela, and I look forward to hearing your stories. Thank you.
Hey, Baba, I'm going to call on Pratapji. If you can unmute, Pratapji. Pratap Ahir, if you can unmute.
Hello.
Perfect.
Jai Baba to all who are observing this. Jai Baba. Can you hear me properly? Oh, thanks. Jai Baba, thanks. Last night when my son told me about this message about Dr. Goher's death anniversary, I asked him whether, just to inquire whether I will be allowed to have little time to speak about Dr. Goher. And I am very thankful to all the organizers for allowing me this opportunity. Now, the early times when we came in Baba's contact, we simply knew these girls, the Baba's women mandali, from a distance. We never talked to them. But since the time, Guru Prasad time, of course, we used to very often go to Guru Prasad and sit there with Baba. And during those days, Mani, Baba's sister Mani, and Dr. Goher, they were only allowed to come out and talk with the people. So that way, we had established sort of a friendship with both Mani and Dr. Goher. Now, Dr. Goher had a very, very big role in my life. Baba dropped his body on 31st December 69, and thereafter, the next year, we started observing Baba's Amar Tithi. Around about 1997 or so, once all these lady mandali, women mandali, they used to come and sit in the pandal throughout the day, observing all the proceedings of the Amar Tithi. And I used to be on the stage looking after the stage management, calling the people according to the numbers and all that. So I was assisting on the stage duty. Now, whenever these ladies, these women mandali used to sit there in the first row, it was my habit to get down from the stage and each one, standing before each one, just to say Jai Baba, and then I will resume my duties again. So in 96 or 97, I am not sure about that year, when I came down of the stage to say Jai Baba to these lady members, they were not keeping good health and they were about to leave the place. So I hurried up to go there and down, and then when I approached Dr. Goher, she stopped me. She said, Pratap, just wait for some time. I have something for you. Let me finish up with these visitors and then I will talk to you. So I just took a chair, empty chair by her side, and after she finished with the visitors, she turned to me and said, that would you like to go to LA? I was a little bit puzzled. I didn't know what is that LA. But then I could recollect that I had read some magazines, Love Street Lamppost, in that I had read about LA. Then Gover explained to me that every year the Los Angeles Center holds a gathering, and one person from India they invite for this gathering. And I feel, that is what Gover told me, that I feel you should go this year, you should go for that program, because you are from a very early childhood, you are with Baba, you know so many stories about Meher Baba. Your life has made so many stories about Meher Baba, and also you sing well, so you can be a good choice for this Savas program. I told her that if at all anything arranged for me, I will definitely go. And then after 2 3 months, I was just, this was left out. Then I said yes, if at all Baba wishes, I will definitely go. And from my side, I said yes. And then I resumed my duty on the stage. Thereafter, 3 months passed, and when I casually visited Merazad, I went to Goa, who was sitting on the wheelchair, and she asked me what has happened about LA. I said nothing. I do not know what has happened, and I do not also know what I am supposed to do. Then she said, no, no, you are not supposed to do anything. Now, luckily, there are two of the board members here in Merazad. I will introduce you to them, and I have already recommended your name. So she called two Irani girls. One was by name Mernush, and another was, I don't remember the name. But they two were called, and Gover introduced me to them. And she said, I strongly recommend his name for that LA Savas. And you put up his name before your board members. Then she asked me, Gover asked me, just spend one night more in Mehrabad. Let these girls hear you singing, and then tomorrow you can return to Pune. So I stayed overnight there, and those girls, they heard me singing, and they immediately came to me and said that we are strongly recommending your name for this alias Savas. And that is how the whole alias Savas was arranged for me. And Dr. Goher was the main cause for that. In fact, afterwards, I used to feel always that there are several senior members in our group, but they were not given this privilege to visit US. And how I am selected for that, I do not know. But then I expressed this thought in a couple of meetings. Third time when I again said it, then one Linda, I think Michael name, she told me, Pratap, never repeat this again. It is Meher Baba choice. You have no you have no business to talk or comment on that. And thereafter I stopped talking about that. So this was how I had a big role Goher had played in my life. Otherwise, to go to visit US was next to impossible. One other incident, whether I have little time for another incident. Can I take little more time?
Yes.
So one incident which I would take about Baba's visit in Pune. He had come and stayed with in a in botanical garden. There is a very big area, botanical garden, where they are experimenting on the different plantations. Very big garden. And Dadi Kerawala was the chief of that whole area. And Baba, a couple of times, Baba had stayed in his quarters. So one such occasion, Baba had given darshan to so many people. It was a beautiful program, full of Baba love. Whenever Baba sits giving darshan, he will give you in abundance all his love, and everybody will feel so very happy and satisfied with it. That time, I was in a little bit in a dejected mood because of certain happenings in my life. But then, whenever I used to go before Baba, I used to be feel very happy. No worry about all my whatever may be my personal worries, my private life. I never bothered about that when I am standing before Baba or sitting before Baba. So that day, we used to sing. We had a bhajan mandali, the Pune bhajan. I was a member, very active member of the Pune bhajan mandali. That was called as a Meher Baba's Pune bhajan mandali because it was completely belonging to Meher Baba, completely belonging to Meher Baba. Whenever Baba wants, he could call us and then we used to perform for him. So that bhajan, I was member of that bhajan mandali. And during that program, that darshan program, Baba abruptly asked me to sing the song. In fact, it was very unusual because we used to sing along with Madhusudan. Madhusudan was a very great singer, and he was a very staunch Baba lover also. So he had composed about 250 songs on Baba. So we used to sing with him as a group singer, and abruptly Baba that day asked me to sing individually a song, and in that dejected mood, I sang one song which was composed by me. And when before completing that, I was completing that song, I was in tears. I was in tears so much, so uncontrollably I was weeping. And Baba just kept on looking at me and then said, "What has happened to you? Why you weep?" I said, "Nothing, Baba, just I had become emotional." Then Baba called me. "You are not keeping good health. You are so very weak." And he called me close and said, "You look so anemic." He checked up my nails, pressing my nails. He said, "There is no blood in your body." He opened my eyes and saw and said, "There is you look so very anemic." And then he called Goher from inside. Now Dr. Goher was Dr. Baba's doctor. In fact, Dr. Bharucha was sitting there right by Baba's side. But then Baba didn't ask Bharucha. He called Goher from inside and told Goher just go and see what do you feel about his health. Doesn't he appear very anemic? And Gover comes to close to me and said, "Yes, Baba, he needs a nutritious food." And Baba asked me whether you take milk and butter. During those days, I could not afford to have that luxury of having milk and butter every day. So I just kept quiet. But thereafter, after about a month, when Baba returned to Bharat, he had started paying me for my diet 25 rupees per month. 25 rupees per month, Adi K. Irani used to pay on behalf of Baba. And this was continued up to 1967. Even after I was employed, still then it went on continuing up to 1967. In 67, Baba inquired, through Adi, Baba inquired with me whether that amount which he was, Adi was paying me on Baba's behalf, whether I need it. And I he wrote to Baba, back to Baba, that no, Baba, I don't need it now. You can stop it any time. So that is the role Dr. Goher, and thereafter she always kept on inquiring about me. Whenever I go there in Guru Prasad, she will inquire about my health. My son's daughter, my granddaughter, when she was born, her mother had a lot of problems at the time of delivery, and the girl was to be removed in a bigger hospital to be kept in a ventilator. And I was sitting throughout the night by her side, outside of that ward. And when after she was out of danger and she was taken home, I just paid a visit to Mehrabad and contacted Dr. Goher, and Dr. Goher inquired about the health of the girl. He said, "How is she now? Whether she is safe?" I said, "Yes, yes, doctor, she is safe now." And Dr. Goher said that we all were so very concerned about this girl. That girl is now she's serving in US, I think in Texas. She's serving Texas, a very staunch Baba lover. So this is what I, I had a very close contact with Dr. Goher. She was so very, always has been so very loving, so very appreciative about all our programs during Amargiri. We had a very big group of small children, and we had to experiment on so many programs in during the Amargiri time, and everybody used to appreciate so much. I'm very thankful to all of you for allowing me this opportunity to speak about Dr. Goher. Thank you. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Such an honor for us. Thank you so much.
Yes.
There's a couple of folks who had some prepared remarks, and then we will spontaneously call on Jimmy Kahn and Dr. Ann after that, if that's all right. So Laurel Magrini, there you go.
Hi. Okay. I'm going to read a letter that Dr. Goher had written to Baba. And Shelley Marich, who was assisted Goher for years, for decades, and who still lives at Marisad after a long, long time, she had sent this letter to be read at this remembrance get-together. And she wrote to Karen, and Karen asked me to read it. This letter from Goher to Baba was written in September 1938, after her return to Bombay from Mehrabad. She had been staying with the Dada Chandjis at the time, and Baba had called for her to come with Arnavas. Rhoda and Nargish, to come with Arnavas, Rhoda, and Nargish to help with the play presented to Baba by the Musts and Mad, who were then residing at Lower Mehrabad. Of course, she was thrilled to be called by Baba. Any chance to see him was golden for her. And the letter she wrote on her return to Bombay and school touched me very much. Dearest Baba, I found a heavenly living when I was on the hill with you and the Mandali. You called me just to have a glimpse of the heaven on earth, and within the winking of an eye, the gates were closed again and I was left on the outside. But even with that, I am content. I was so happy even with those few hours. In the very nook of Mehrabad is the world itself, with all its humdrum of life, carried on so harmoniously by all men and women alike for only one cause, namely Baba. And what you have created among the God-mad men, musts, how they worship you could be seen in their very eyes. they did so well due only to your inspiration. Otherwise, it would seem crazy even to them, acting and singing with such enthusiasm and sanity as they did. I think in reality, they are sane, for they can understand and know their master more than we sane people can. Ours is a pretension of loving Baba, but theirs is the real and ardent devotion. In my own simple way, I must thank you, my dear Lord, for all your goodness towards me. By staying a day or two among your gopis who love and adore you with all the sanctity of their souls and minds, I too begin to understand my beloved master gradually and see him more clearly. I become so very happy that the very strings of my heart begin to vibrate with joy and emit the lulling tunes in praise of my Baba. I remain yours humbly, Goher. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Sally and Patrick, please.
Jai Baba, everyone. It's great to see you all. And I'm going to read a condensed version of what was published in the Love Street Lamppost in October 2004, a few months after Goher died, that I wrote up of my experience of being with her in the last few days of her life. So here we go. Word of the awesome smoothness of her skin preceded my first meeting Dr. Goher in 1990, 30 years ago, and I found not just her hands and cheeks, but her whole being to be infused with that unique glowing softness. When at the end of my first trip here, I said goodbye to Goher, she surprised me by saying, "I want to see you dance again before I die." So sweet, so generous, and for me, so intimidating. I was hesitant about returning for several years after that, my ego not wanting to be responsible were she actually to die after I danced for her again. I did eventually return, of course, and dance for her, the other Mandali, and the pilgrims several more times. And each time she didn't die, it was a big relief for me. But now it seems she's going to Baba soon, and I'm happy and grateful to be able to come to see her on very short notice, hoping to honor her request one last time. Sunday, June 20th. Dr. Goher wanted us to come out to Marisad right away upon our arrival at the trust office. So we went, of course, sweat and dust and all. She was lying on her side in Mani's bed, looking completely helpless physically, but alert in her mind. She opened her eyes a little bit and with great difficulty managed to say, "I'm happy you came." Monday, June 21st. We were invited to come out in the morning. "Would you like Patrick and Sally to dance for you?" Shelley asked, to which she nodded. She opened her eyes for a little while, immediately when I started to dance, to Fats Waller's song, "I'm Growing Fonder of You," and smiled broadly. In the middle of the song, she reached out her hand, so I held it and did a little hand duet with her. Then she said to me, "Thank you for dancing. I'm happy. And I'm sorry I made you wait. And I'm sorry I can't talk." Then Sarah danced to one of the Finnish Russian waltzes that Bob Ian had introduced us to, and you should have seen Goher's smile. It might have been her last one, but boy, was it big. Lastly, we did our duet, "Don't Blame Me," for her, with a recording of Gladys Spratt, Sarah's mother and longtime head librarian at Sarwoja Library at the Meher Center, playing the piano and singing. Sally told her the words before we began to dance. Don't blame me for falling in love with you. I'm under your spell, so how can I help it? Don't blame me. Mind you, we were dancing in a space the size of a postage stamp, as there was about 3 feet of space between Mani's bed and Mara's bed. I was alerted numerous times not to touch Mara's bed, as everyone was understandably nervous before we began dancing, and relieved when we were done. Goher has been saying she doesn't want to eat anymore, but after our dance, she actually ate a big meal of salad and juice and moussaka made especially for her by Alan. Yesterday, everyone was depressed and gloomy. Today, the mood was much lighter. Friday, June 25th, 3 little gifts. Today, again, we were asked to go out to Marazad and give her 2 long massages. She opened her eyes 3 times in my presence. The first time, I got a Jai Baba. The second time, she responded with a wave of her hand when I waved to her from the foot of the bed. The third time, she blew me a kiss. Let's see. Saturday, June 26th. How can I convey what an incredible gift this week has been? Coming here to dance for Baba's dying doctor and being given 6 days filled with completely unexpected opportunities to be there with her in her awesome acceptance, generosity, and grace. How can I describe the feeling of putting my hands on her helpless body, her broken wings, trying with whatever I know to tune into her to alleviate her pain a little, to touch her skin, still as soft and delicate as ever, to hug her bones with my hands, to stimulate the tissue, to smooth out the flesh, and to simultaneously watch her radiant face relax, to have her drift into sleep while working on her, to experience her fullness, even as she is almost visibly fading each day as it goes on. It is humbling, grounding, ecstatically beautiful. Words truly do not capture the preciousness. Towards the end of our time there, I feel a prompt to smooth out her forehead. So I move to the head of the bed and begin by putting my hands on her cheeks. And she says immediately with a sigh, I like it. All of a sudden, she tremblingly moves her hand from under the covers to scratch her nose. On the way back to the sheets, I take it. She holds my hand, and we stay there for a long time, me hanging over the headboard, holding her hand, while smoothing out her forehead and cheeks with my other hand. I drop deeply into some more than worldly state of being, a quiet mind. I could stay here forever. Sarah briefly leaves the room to find out if it was time to leave. She comes back in to say goodbye to Goher, who looks at her, then lifts her eyes high to look up at me, which prompts me to step around to face her so she won't have to strain to see me. I tell her it's time for us to say goodbye, and she looks at me and looks at me and looks at me, and I put my hands on her cheeks again. What a sight. She is incredibly beautiful. As if that wasn't enough, as I'm straightening up, getting ready to leave, she reaches out her hand, grabs mine, and pulls me back toward her. Sarah leans in as well, and the 3 of us stay there looking at each other for some blissfully eternal seconds until she turns to face her sister Katie, who is standing on the other side of the bed. This is profound, to be understood only by the heart and the soul. Nothing matters but this moment. Only she knows that this is my goodbye with her. Wednesday, June 30th. Goher, meaning jewel in Gujarati, passed on today, June 30th, 2004. She died on what for many organizations in the US, including our own nonprofit corporation, is the end of the fiscal year. Now, how does that add up? Turns out July 1st, the day of her cremation, was designated World Doctors' Day. And from Meher Baba's time up until very recently, Dr. Goher was the treasurer of Merazad. So on June 30th this year, she was closing her books. That's how it all adds up. And then about 3 years later, Sarah and I were making a dance piece, what we call a site-specific work at an outdoor place at the Bates Dance Festival in Lewiston, Maine. And it was all happening around a little lake. And it turned out to be, it was the 25th anniversary of the festival, and we worked with over 100 people. And Bob Ian made the music for it. And it felt like a three-ring circus with all this stuff happening all around the pond. And at the end, we had people come out in little boats with Chinese lanterns, and they let them go. So that's how the piece ended. And a little while afterwards, I realized, oh my God, we thought we were just making as beautiful a piece as we could for the people to enjoy. But to me, it was all about Goher, because after she passed away, here we had this precious close time with her for almost 10 days. And after she passed away, the circle widened, and at each station where her body was brought to, from Mandali Hall at Merazad to the Mandap and Baba Samadhi and Old Mandali Hall to the cremation site, at each stop, the circle widened and more people came and joined, and we got more and more sort of pushed toward the edges. And that's how it should have been. And so I realized that circle widening, we use that image in our dance work that we do. So a very, very precious time. Thank you.
Wow. I wonder, Angela, if it would be better, this is just so full. Why don't we go on to some other people, and then I can come back later and tell more stories.
Fair, that's fair. And you can always digitally raise your hand so I don't lose your place. All right. So I wanted to call on Goher Mobid. There you go.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba. So for those of you who, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with who I am the daughter of Minu Kharas from Karachi, Pakistan. And my story begins with Dad, because from his very childhood, he was an ardent seeker of God. And his lifelong dream was to meet God and be one with him. So to cut a very long story short, I will fast forward to 1932, when after his lifelong search through his younger years, he finally met Baba in Nasik in 1932. Upon first meeting Baba and laying eyes on him, he knew from the bottom of his heart that he had met his God. And at that very moment, after that first meeting, he surrendered his whole life to Baba. And from then on, every decision, every turn in his life was directed by Baba. So now we fast forward to the late 40s, when he finally met my mom. And she was Freni Kekashru Patel in Karachi. And my maternal grandfather had also recently become a Baba lover. And that's how Dad came to know him. So of course, meeting Mom through Dad, through my grandfather rather, they struck up a friendship and fell in love and courted for some years. And finally in 1954, with Baba's blessing, and Baba having told Dad 3 times, marry Freni, marry Freni, marry Freni. So in 1954, in February, they were married. And then 9 months later, yours truly made my debut into this world. Well, that was a time of strict seclusion that Baba was in. And Dad, of course, right away sent a telegram as soon as I was born to Baba saying that we have a daughter and we'd like you to name her. Now, my dad was part of Baba's very close, intimate circle of 120 disciples. So anyway, the telegram was sent, but Baba being in strict seclusion, all the collected correspondence from all over the world from his lovers was kept aside. So for 5 months, I had no name. On my birth certificate, it said Baby Karas. Okay, so my grandparents, of course, from my maternal side were very much up in arms and telling Dad, this is ridiculous. Why don't you give her a name? And Dad said, no, when the time is right, Baba will send her name. So therefore 5 months go by. And the only stipulation at that time with this seclusion, Baba had said that if any of his close ones were to pass away, that information should be brought to him right away. So as it turned out, my father's cousin, Adi Dubash, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of Adi and Rhoda Dubash from Karachi. They had 2 sons at the time, Nirwan and then Homi, who was younger. Well, as it turned out, very tragically, Homi had a very bad accident. He fell from a 2nd-story window and with severe head trauma had passed away. So when news of Homi's death reached Nagar and Baba was informed, he came out of seclusion briefly at that point, and all the collected correspondence was brought to him. And of course, among them was Dad's letter announcing my birth. So he asked all his women mandali to come and stand in front of him. And then he pointed to Mera and he said, now there are too many Meras. I've given your name too many times. Okay. Then next was Mani. He looks at Mani and he says, same thing, your name too, given too many times. And the next one after that was Dr. Goher. So he looks at her and he says, what do you think, Goher? Shall we send your name? And Dr. Goher said, Baba, your wish. So Baba says, done. And so I have a letter to this day from Erich uncle, that says, today, April 21st, Baba has named your daughter Goher, into parentheses, Jewel. And I still have, of course, that letter is one of my treasured possessions. So, and then a few months after that, when Dad again had been called to Mehrabad for a meeting of just the men mandali, he had taken a picture of a baby photograph of mine to Baba, and he presented that photo to him and said, this is Goher. And Baba took the picture in his hand like this, and he looked at it, and he rocked me from side to side. And so that is my little story with my namesake, Dr. Goher, who I am so, so blessed, incredibly blessed to be her namesake. And of course, we met many times in 1962, in 1965, and again in the early 90s when we would visit with our family, and many, many precious memories of my sweet namesake. So that is my story. So Jai Baba.
Such a wonderful story.
Thank you. Thank you.
So delightful.
So blessed.
Dr. N, can I call on you?
Hello, Jai Baba. Yes, well, thank you for all this. I'm surprised how moved I am listening to all of you. And yes, Patrick, you said intimidating. I'm always surprised because people speak so much, so often about her softness. For me, she was tough. She was so strong. And, you know, I was just basically just out of medical school when I discovered Baba and when I went to India, and I went for 1 year to help Goher, not knowing that it would be a second year and another one and so on. So I really was ignorant of many things. And it took me quite a while to understand the extent of what she was doing, the extent of her service. For example, I would help her in the dispensary in Merazan, and we would be sharing a desk. You know, the dispensary at this time was really small and a low budget affair. So I would be sitting next to her, and whenever I would turn to her to ask her a question, she had disappeared because she kept going back to the main house to check on Mera. And it took me really a while to understand that, you know, now that Baba was no longer physically present, her focus was on Mera. And, you know, there were other ladies there. If it was an office day and Mani had gone, there was Meru, Anavaz, but Goher, you know, part of her was seeing patients in a dispensary, but her attention was, what is Mera doing? You know, is Mera eating something? And she would, several times during the morning, she would just get on a little bicycle and go back to the house to check on Mera. And yeah, I was always sort of a little behind in understanding this special woman. She was very tough with me, you know. I remember she was not a big talker, and she was not somebody who talked about herself or her emotions very much. But I was with her when Mani was in the hospital, when it was discovered that Mani was very ill and Mani had cancer. So Shelly was in Pune with Mani, and I was at Merazad, being with Goher. And every day we would go to the dispensary because there was one phone there. And every day the news would be bad. And Goher would just steel herself. I wanted to say sometimes, just, it's okay to cry, you know, just cry. But she was just so strong, and she would go back and sort of report. All the men and ladies mandali would gather around the end of the veranda, and she would give them the news of the day. And I was just always amazed by her endurance, you know, her ability to push back her personal feelings, to do what she felt had to be done. And I remember as she grew older and she had all these, you know, physical problems and ailments, and she was so full of pain, you know, she needed to have shoulders replacements. And when I would walk with her, you know, you could hear and feel her bones creaking. And she would just look at me and smile and say, you know, like, don't worry, I'm all right. She wasn't expecting, she didn't want me to worry about her. Yeah. And I remember once, a sort of a rare moment when she was not well and nothing seemed to work. So I started rubbing some acupuncture points. And by that, you know, touching her, I suddenly had the impression, or whatever, I don't know how to call that she was, you know, she was still sort of burdened by all the suffering she had seen of, you know, I mean, imagine that kind of work, to see Baba suffer and be the person that he calls to do something. And basically there is nothing you can do. It's all happening due to Baba's work, which you don't understand, which he won't explain to you. I mean, you are put in that impossible position. How do you, you know, how do you survive that? I don't know. So anyway, for that brief moment, I just felt she had all this suffering that was not hers, that all the suffering she had seen and she had tried to help. And so tears came to my eyes, and just then, of course, she looks at me and she, you know, with sort of the tone she had with me, don't worry, I'm not dying yet. I have more things to do. And yeah, she lived a few more years after that. But, you know, she was not somebody who liked to be the center of attention. When you see she's rarely seen in the movies, or if you see her, she's usually running away to hide from the camera. I think I lost my thread. I think I'm talking too much. Anyway, thank you for this opportunity of remembering this very special woman. And, you know, she was, birthday's August, she's a Leo. And for all her softness, she had that lion quality in her. Jai Baba.
So moving. I see a lot of tears. Very moving. Jimmy Khan, you think we can call on you? You need to unmute, yeah?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Jai Baba. My name is Jimmy Khan, and I'm talking to you from Mumbai, India. I would have talked to you from the US itself, because this would have been my third time when LA Savas would have invited me to talk to you at the LA Savas, but Baba had some other plans. There is no LA Savas, so I'm not in the US, I'm talking from Mumbai. We, the Khan family, namely my mom, Khurshid Khan, my sisters Diana and Betsy and myself, we met Baba in the 60s, a big number of times. When I say big number of times, I mean big number of times. And I've written a book called He Alone Exists. And this is a maybe 200 pages book, and roughly 20 pages are devoted to the correspondence that was made by the Mangli to my mom and my sister Dinah. And they are either in letter forms or in telegrams forms. And there are some color pictures of the artifacts that Meher Baba used himself. So the 20 pages, this is one page. I don't know if this is one letter. I know you can't read it. I don't want you to read it, but this is one page. This is a letter written by Goher in December of 1962. And it was written to my sister Diana, saying that I want you to take care of your health, and I'm sending you some pills to someone who will come to Mumbai. And in the meantime, I want you to take intratone syrup, whatever that intratone syrup means. It runs into the second page as well. And then, and on the very next page, there is this letter written by Erich, but at the bottom, as kind of a PS, Goher is writing something else further down. So there are a few pages where there are letters written by Goher. And the last letter is, this is the last letter written by in 2000 when my mother had passed on. So she had written to the family not to worry, she's okay, she's with Baba, etc., etc. So this is the last letter written in 2000. Now coming to the stories, telling you the very first day we met Baba. Could be 1960, it could be 1961. We are not too sure whether it was 60 or 61. Well, that's not important. We met Baba, The door was closed. It was something like a private audience. And then Baba looks at my sisters. They were very skinny and very weak-like. So Baba's telling Erich, we were just 4 of us in the room, in the Guru Prasad Mandli room. And Baba's telling Erich, go and call Goher. So Erich goes over and he shouts from the central hall, saying, go ahead, Baba's calling you, come immediately. So Goher, the door is still closed. Nobody is there, just the 4 or 5 of us. And Goher says, yes, Baba. So Baba's pointing at my sisters, Diana and Manchi. Sorry, I beg your pardon, Diana and Bepsi. And Baba's pointing at them and telling Goher, you look at them, they're so skinny, they don't look good to me. Take them over and get them medically checked. Goher was a physician. So Baba says, check them medically and report to him. And then my mom is here. So Baba's telling my mom, you also go and go on the other side. So effectively, that was the first time my mother, Khorshid, and my sisters, Diana and Bepsi, they go over to the women's side, and starting from Mera, Mani, Rano, big Khorshid, small Khorshid, Naja, you name all the women of the 60s, the Guru Prasad women. They meet all those women for the very first time. My sisters are examined medically by Goher. In the meantime, Baba tells Erich to open the door. So everybody comes in, everybody sits down. And my mom, Goher, Diana, Bepsi, they all come into the room. And Goher is telling Baba, they are all right, Baba, they are fine. They're just skinny, but health-wise, they are okay. So Baba says, I'm happy to hear that. The all-knowing, infinitely knowing, doesn't know that these 2 girls are healthy. But Baba, if he had played poker, Baba would have been the best poker player on earth, the best poker player. He would make a face as if he knows nothing. In short, Baba wanted everything to know from you. It would have been you telling Baba everything about yourself and your family, not Baba asking you about you. That's all. It always happened in that sense. And therefore Baba says, oh, it's okay. That's all right. So that's the first story. On some other occasion, Goher is checking my sister Diana medically in the women's side. And maybe Baba told her to check my sister. I'm not too sure. I think Baba told her to check my sister. And Goher is checking Diana medically, thoroughly, and there's nothing wrong with her. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her. So Goher is telling Diana, tell me very honestly, what is wrong? What's bothering you? You are medically fit. There's nothing wrong with you. There's something here. There's something here that's bothering. So what is it? So Diana tells her that I'm in love with a boy. So Goher says, so what about it? So Dinah says, my mom doesn't approve of him. And Goher says, what about? Why? So Dinah says, because he smokes. Now we are Zoroastrians, we are fire worshippers. And being fire worshippers, Zoroastrians don't take fire in the mouth. You worship the fire, you don't take fire in the mouth. So, in those days, the Parsis did not approve to smoking. We're talking about 60s. So naturally the matter goes to Baba that Baba, this is it, and this is the reason why Dinah is. So in front of everybody else, Baba's asking Mom, Dinah is also there, I am there. What's wrong with two of you? What's the problem? So my mom understood what Baba is talking about. So Mom said, Baba, I'm not in favor because he smokes. So we won't go into that story, but by and large, there is a story between Goher and Dinah. And the third story is mine. I was a university student. This was summertime. This was roughly 1963, 64. And we all Zoroastrians, we all Parsis stayed at a hotel called Mobo's Hotel, which was very close to Guru Prasad. Maybe 200 meters, 150 meters on the same pavement. So we were the closest to Baba as against anyone else. We were the closest to Baba, very close to Guru Prasad. I failed in my exams, university exams, and I felt very awkward because all the other youngsters had passed and I was the only idiot who had failed. So I'm crying, and the word goes to Baba that Jimmy is crying at Mobo's. So Baba says, send him over. So I'm sent over. I enter Guru Prasad, and at the gate, not at the gate, at the entrance of Guru Prasad, Aloba is seated. Normally Aloba would be seated. So Aloba tells me to go into the central hall, not the monthly room. Normally we would always go into the monthly room. For one reason, he tells me to go into the central hall. I go into the central hall. Baba is seated he's at the dining table. For the first time, I'm seeing dining table in the central hall. Normally, there are 300 people in the central hall for the bhajan, ghazal program. So there's a dining table. Baba is seated there, and Goher is standing next to Baba. And Baba is telling me, sit down, sit down. So I sit down on the carpet, and Baba is asking me what happened. How did you fail? Why did you fail? So we are talking about this, my failure at the university level. And someone called Goher inside, maybe from the pantry, maybe from the women's room. So Goher excuses herself and she goes into wherever she went. And here's me and Meher Baba, just the two of us looking at each other. In the whole wide world, me and Meher Baba looking at each other. And Baba's trying to tell me something. His gestures would fly. They won't be like A and B and C. His fingers would fly. And I said, sorry, Baba, I can't understand. So Baba's doing it for the second time. I said, sorry, I'm sorry, Baba. I felt so absurd that Baba is talking to me and I can't get him. I have a feeling he tried for the third time. I said, I'm very sorry, Baba, please. I'm sorry, I can't. Baba said, never mind. Then he said, get up. So I get up. And in front of him, it was summer season, so there's a plate full of sliced mangoes. So Baba picks up a slice of mango, gives it in my hand. So with my both hands, with reverence, I accept with my both hands. And I take it and I sit down again. And Baba's staring into my eyes, I'm staring into Baba's eyes, not knowing what's happening between the two of us. And then Goher walks in, and Baba's gesturing to Goher as to what Baba is trying to tell me. And Goher says that, Baba says that, I'll help you with your education, I'll help you with your exams. You do well with your exams. Baba told me earlier that I should be doing CPA. So that's what I'm a CPA. And Baba also gave my mother 300 rupees. I'm talking about 64. And in 64, 300 rupees was big money. And Baba told my mother that this is for Jimmy's education. So that's how my mother received, and I received 300 rupees for my education. So these are some short stories where Dr. Goher is related. Jai Baba. Thank you.
Hey, Baba, wonderful, wonderful stories.
Thank
So
you.
sweet. So we're wondering if Ram Nori, maybe you might have some stories to share? I'm picking on certain people, as you see. He wasn't prepared with any remarks. And again, try to unmute. There you go.
I don't, thanks for asking, Angela, but I don't think, I've spent a whole lot of time, with Dr. Goher, to share any stories. But I might ask my brother, Meher, if he had spent any time. I think he may be online here.
Yes, he is. Yes, he is.
Yeah, maybe, he can, maybe, he can, because I was in US and then I was a student and then I would come and spend very little time. And whatever time, I had, mostly, it would be around, money auntie more than with, Dr. Goher was, busy with her dispensary.
Jai Baba, thank you.
Jai Baba.
And I was going to pick on Jeff Wobbleton just to see if I can get some stories out of you.
Well, when we first went, a lot of us went back in the early 70s to India. And we would go out, we would go out to Marizad on the regular days. And Goher was there in the women Mandalay. After you were in Mandalay Hall, you went over to Mara's porch. And what would happen periodically is Dr. Goher would disappear and she would be gone for a week or two. And then, then she would reappear and she would be kind of her bright self. And so time went on. Those early years, we would stay for like 4 months. And so I asked one day, I said, where is Dr. Goher going? We see her and then she seems to disappear. And I was told that she was in such grief with missing Baba that she just couldn't bear to be out there in public. I didn't, she felt so, as you all know, felt so responsible for not being able to keep Baba, to be able to help him with in his suffering and try to help him toward the end of his life. And so she was in a lot of grief in those early years, and they set up the little clinic there. It was on the men's side, one of those little rooms with a room in the back. And so Pendu would be the, what do you call it, triage or something? He would be there and get it with the files and sign people in, and the villagers would come in. And they did this, as I understood at the time, so that Goher would have something concrete to do, some service, so that she would be able to kind of move out of her grief. And in those early years, I wound up working in the clinic, and it was, I wasn't like I'd done a little bit of assistant nursing, but they had these, we'd have to dress wounds. I mean, like I've never seen wounds like these, or very, things like malaria or malnutrition. And then we had to give these shots with these huge needles. I mean, they were glass needles. And God, every time I would go out to Marizad to work in a clinic, I'd like, oh my God, I gotta be able to give people shots. And sometimes I'd hit somebody's bone, and it was like, or the skin was so tough that I couldn't get through the surface, and it was like, it was a little bit nerve-wracking. But Goher was there, and she was so sweet and told me how to do this and do that. I was in way over my head, but she was very loving. She did some, you know, she was very caring toward me at especially one very low point in my life, which I don't want to go into that, but she really just took me in her arms and helped me. So many other memories, but those are just some that I recall right now.
Fantastic. Just so sweet. So sweet. Well, I'd like to open the room to sharing by all. We like to keep track of who wants to share by using the digital raise hand function. I've put it in the chat how to do that. Ruth will take over from here, so maybe she can explain how to do that.
Jai Baba. All right, let's see. Of course, I don't have my notes with me.
No worries, it's in the chat. Ruth, we don't hear you anymore. All right, so to fill in that time, I'm not sure why, Ruth, your microphone went off. Ruth? All right, well, we'll come back to that. So to raise hand, I mean, for sharing, the shorthand way. Can you hear me? Okay, so they're hearing me. Ruth, they're not hearing you. The shorthand way is on a PC, you do Alt-Y, those two buttons. On a Mac, it's Option-Y. On a smartphone, it's going to be under the 3 dots more. And even from a landline, you can digitally raise your hand. It's *9 on a landline. We're having some technical difficulties with Ruth. So I'd like to call on Glenn to go first. Glenn, are you able to?
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, most people have covered pretty much what I would have said. For a few years, I worked in the dispensary, and the dispensary at Marizad was a beautiful place to work, to be in, because one, it was part of Marizad, and two, Goher was the presiding presence of the dispensary. And as everyone knows and has said, Goher was a beautiful person. She was so loving, warm, and that made the dispensary a place that the villagers all felt that they wanted to go to. If there was a dispensary closer to their home, they would still come to the Marizad dispensary because one, they felt it was Mayor Baba's place. But two, they would be treated by Dr. Goher. And although, as Anne says, Dr. Goher and Katie, the two sisters, are both very strong people and disciplined the few people like myself who worked in the dispensary to make sure that everything was done perfectly. Goher was also, as someone else said, so soft and angelic. And the villagers, of course, felt that, knew that. And that made a beautiful atmosphere in the dispensary, which was almost like another sub-part of Marizad, making the whole experience really nice to be in and work in. The few people like myself, different people who worked in the dispensary at different times, Goher trained how to give an injection and to do bandaging. And Dr. Goher and Shelley would be at their desk and would initially meet the patients, diagnose what their problem was, And then if they were to get a bandage or a dressing, they'd be sent back to the back room with one of the people like myself or Danny or Dave Milger or Casey and Devana and so many people, different people throughout the years, either gave an injection or dressed them. Villagers at that time, the village was much more primitive than it is now. India has come up so much materially that you won't recognize the village as much. And people of the village, I would say, didn't even have soap. So that, as Jeff said, you would see incredible wounds because if a villager wore sandals and worked physical labor, they got a wound, they dressed it with some rag, and that's how it stayed for a week or two until it became very infected. And then they come to their only recourse, which was the Marisad dispensary, and were, again, treated with great love so that they actually liked to come there. And the same patients would come. Many of this, there'd be on the veranda would be 100 to 120 people every day, but the same patients would come very often and became sort of like friends of the dispensary, and you knew them all. There was cases like where a story that's often told, there's a hill nearby where people who had different problems and thought they were possessed went to hopefully get cured. And by accident, one person wound up coming to the dispensary and became a long-time patient of Dr. Goher's because she had epilepsy and was, of course, not possessed. And there would be cases of people who had epilepsy and would have a seizure there, and we would hold them, and Dr. Goher would come over and give the proper injection to settle them down. Long and short is we go through so many different types of illnesses and things that you usually don't see here. And all of these things Dr. Goher would treat very lovingly and warmly. I remember once there was a time where Mother Teresa, I think, was somewhere in the area, a very beautiful person. And people were talking about that. I remember thinking, gee, that'd be nice to do something like that. And then the next thought I had was, oh, Marisad Dispensary does that. We never think of it. Baba has made it clear that when you do things of service, that you shouldn't feel I did it. The dispensary served the villagers who had very little recourse, but no one who worked there felt, I'm doing service, so I'm serving. You never thought of it. It was just part of what was done at Marisad. One of the things I did most was bandage people. So I might be sitting at the bandage station, dressing a wound, which might very well have maggots crawling out of it. And Dr. Goher would come walking back. She'd look down at the wound, look at me, she'd say, open your mouth, here's a chocolate. Nah. It was a nice place to be, and it was great to be with Dr. Goher. Oh, can you see this? Let's see. Can you see that picture?
Can you lower? Yeah, and close up a little bit. Do people see that? Isn't that sweet?
Now, what that is that might not be an everyday patient. The little girl came in, her mother brought her in, of course. She was a baby. She was born deformed with her feet spread apart. She would never have a normal life. And in the picture, you could see how Dr. Goher's face, how careful she's being. The child's feet are spread apart. And over the course of months, Dr. Goher slowly bandaged them little bit by little bit by little bit, stretching them together till I can't remember how long it took. Maybe it was a year, maybe it was more. That eventually her feet and legs became in the normal place they're supposed to be, straight ahead. And she must have done that every week, very lovingly, stretched her feet, the child's legs. And it was very painful for the child, even though Goher is being so careful and saying Baba, Baba, Baba while she's doing it. And the mother has some sweet on her finger. She's putting her finger in the child's mouth. Well, after, may have been 2 years, I could still picture the mother coming with the child walking, and they go to Goher and give her some present. And because of that, the child could live a normal life. And those are type of things that would happen. She would often materially help the patients who couldn't afford further assistance that had to go into town for x-rays or whatever and pay for the rickshaw. And of course, as has been said, just love Dr. Goher. She was great.
Thank you, Alan. That was wonderful. I worked a little bit in the dispensary, so the stories are just bringing it back to me as well. Alan, you're unmuted if you'd like to speak.
You're talking about me?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to tell a personal story. I'm seeing Glenn right now. Do I get to see me or is I'm on? Okay. Well, Karen and I got married in 1979, and due to some health problems, she was having trouble conceiving. And she talked to Dr. Goher, and Dr. Goher gave her a medication called aloes, not like American aloes, like aloe vera, but some Indian Ayurvedic medicine. And she gave it to many other women in the future. But it helped facilitate Karen's ability to conceive. I helped a little bit too, I suspect. And as a consequence, Karen got pregnant. And the child was born on August 3rd, 1981. His name is Matthew. Some of you know Matthew. And that's Goher's birthday. So during the pendency of the pregnancy, Goher was very excited about the fact that these aloes may have played a part in contributing to the pregnancy. But she was doubly excited about the idea that Matthew was born on her birthday. And I want to tell you, he was born at 11:50 p.m. So he just pulled it off at the last second. But thereafter, as a consequence of that, she took great attraction to Matthew's well-being, and she did get a chance to meet him initially in 1988 at Christmas time when I brought him. He was just 7 then, and she was very sweet and loving towards him. And over the years, she would write him letters for his birthday and such like that. Karen has kept a stash of these things, which I just found out. And she began to regard Matthew as her grandson. She never regarded me as her son. I just want to state that for the record. She had good judgment in that regard. But many years ago, we were having a savas at our house, and Casey was here with us. And I mentioned something to the effect, maybe it was a memorial for Goher. I can't quite remember what the reason was. And I said something to the effect that Dr. Goher regarded Matthew as kind of like her grandson. And Casey turned to me and she said, no, that's not true. Goher regarded Matthew as her grandson. So we felt very touched by that. And of course, the whole family was involved emotionally with the kindness of Goher. And after Goher passed in 2004, it was kind of interesting. I noticed Katie stepped up in kind of a secondary role, and moved up as a kind of an auntie in a way, and treated Matthew in a sweet way. I noticed that when he was there with his wife in 2007 or 8, whichever year it was. And so I always felt that specialness towards Goher. And I want to say, even though Karen wouldn't say it, that because of our close connection to Goher, in that regard, she allowed us, or she helped facilitate us having not only one child, but 3 children. Well, I did 4 there, 3. 3 children, 2 thereafter. When an opportunity arose for Karen to be on the board of the Mayor Fund, which Marnie expressed earlier, or talked about earlier, I should say, Karen joined, and she's been on the board, except when you get termed out, for about 10 or 12 years. So I've been told this is enough. And dutifully, I will end it there, but by saying that Dr. Goher never gave me the chance to clean an injection, and that showed great wisdom on her part. But I was happy to contribute money to the injections that Mr. Wolverton was able to give. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Alan. Thank you. That was wonderful. Meher Chand, would you like to share?
Yeah. Jai Meher Baba.
Jai
Baba, everybody. Even though my mother came into contact with Baba early 50s, but we have not seen the Meherabad or Meherazad till 1980s, because in those days traveling from Meherabad to Meherazad was difficult. No taxis, no autos. But I was very close to the women mandali, especially my mother was very close. That reason I came in contact with the women mandali. And those days, most of the people used to write letters to mandali, especially Westerners. So that becomes so much heap. So what Maramai and Mani and all used to, they cut off the Baba's picture, and remaining letters they used to give it to me to put it in the river. They used to, even especially Goher aunties, to give us the letters to drop it in the flowing water in the river. So I used to do, and I was very regular. In those days, it was an offer given to me by Katie auntie, Mani auntie, and Goher auntie to become a member of the Meherazad family, provided I should not get married, and I was allowed to come only after my parents passes away. So I was this thing. In that time, all three my brothers were in state, and my sister was in sometime in Australia. Then she shifted to this thing. My mother was this thing that I should get married and I should take care of the welfare of the house. So I was forced to get married, and when the engagement took place on 9th December 1987, I got married on 26th February 1988. And that time, the whole Mandali, women Mandali, consoled me and not do this thing. And all of them given me Baba's badges. And they consoled, better like next birth. I said, not next birth, next Avtarik period. And that way I was came to contact. And those days, for dispensary, Goher auntie used to use medicines from a particular company in Hyderabad, JJ Edition. JJ Edition used to manufacture the company, especially even during Baba used to drink that Alvo song, one of the drinks. Dr. Ann knows all these things. So she used to give me and whatever the medicines are not available at Aman Nagar medical shop of the JJ Edition, she used to give us. So I used to get it from Hyderabad and hand it over to the Goher auntie. And that way I was become close to Goher auntie. And second thing, I got married in 1988, and till 2000 I didn't have an issue. But that time, Goher auntie nursed me so much, and she has given me so many medicines, both Ayurvedic and this thing, that my sperm count will be increased, and so that I'll have a child. So by Baba's grace, and also by the prayers of the Goher and auntie and others, I was blessed with a son. And the most important part I want to share with you is regarding the chemical factory. There was a chemical factory near the Meherazad. That Meherazad, on the way to Meherazad on the field. So with everyone, including all the Mandali members, they are worried about the chemical factory. So happens to be there. So they said, what should we do? They're ready. Somebody has advised to file a suit against. I said, don't go for a suit. Suit takes a lot of time. And because we have no right on that property, because that property belongs to the person. So I advise them to go for a public interest litigation, and that too I advise not to involve Meher Baba Trust. Only Dr. Goher should file a individual petition along with the 2 or 3 villages there. So she filed a public interest litigation in Bombay High Court. The case should have been won, but unfortunately we lost in Bombay High Court. But in Supreme Court, we won the case, and ultimately, by Baba's grace, that chemical factory has not come up. In those days, Rustum Farati has took a lot of pains about that case. And similarly, Goher auntie, she has to take care of welfare whenever. And I was advised to come every month, every quarterly. I should come there, spend 3 or 4 days along with the Mandali. That way, I was become little close to the Mandali, and also this thing. Only longingness now I have is I miss the bus. Hoping that I'll have any day in my future birth, I'll be in the Mandali member. So with that, I say Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Thank you. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. Elaine?
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, I'm going to be on the Zoom site. Bye-bye, dear.
Welcome.
I was just on the phone with Will David.
Oh, how cool.
Called
Jai
me.
Baba.
Yeah, yeah. I just had something I wanted to add. It's very short, actually. I had, I loved Goher very much. And she did have this very special warmth about her, but very quiet about it. You had to be around her for a while to get it. Of course, I first met her in '69 at the Darshan, and all the women were at at Guru Prasad for the Darshan. And of course, there was, hundreds of us. And so it was a big, I didn't get to know her well until years later, of course, visiting. And I had the opportunity to visit a lot. And I ended up, doing archival work. So I never was involved in the her work or anything like that. But I always had so much respect for all of them, but Goher in particular somehow. Anyway, I wanted to add on to what Anne said, Dr. Anne, and what Patrick and Sarah said. They were so touching. And I did have the opportunity once, I don't remember the year, but I think it might have been '02 or '03. And my work being archival, I would stay after the Pilgrim Center closed and the pilgrims went away, and I would work into the heat. And just after breakfast disappear into the archival. Once the archival building was built, life changed. Everything got very cushy, relatively speaking. And I would just work all day in the heat. But I would still go out to Merazad, especially because when the pilgrims weren't around, it was just very, very quiet. And the women would put up partitions to keep the sun off the veranda, and it was just wonderful to be there. Anyway, I think it was '02 or '03, and it was really unbelievably hot in the afternoon and after lunch. And one time, just one time, I had the opportunity to serve Goher. She was taking her after lunch rest on that little cot that was outside of Baba's room. That was Goher's bed. And she was lying on her back, and Shelley said that she was having a lot of distress. This was, I think, before. This might tell us what the year was, if anybody knows, but it was before she had the shoulder surgery, and her upper back and neck were in pain. So she's lying on her back, and So Shelley said that it would be good if I could give her some massage, which I'm pretty well known for. So I slid my hands, I knelt down on the floor, excuse me. And as always, just, touching her, this came to mind because of what Patrick said, the softness of her. And I slid my hands underneath her neck, and I started with her neck, just very gently, massaging the vertebrae in the neck. And I began to work down her spine with my hands underneath her, with her weight on me, which wasn't very much. She was very, very light. And I could feel her bones moving. She was like a bird inside, and she was so fragile. And I was afraid I was going to hurt her. And she would kind of encourage me to keep going because she could tell because she could feel her bones moving too, of course, but apparently it didn't cause her pain. And she was so sweet about it. And I went pretty deep from that position all the way down to between her shoulder blades. I was trying to release the muscles, to relax the muscles around the spine, and especially the scapula. And that's where she had a lot of pain. And she was so sweet about it. And of course, on any other person, I would have massaged with some kind of vigor, but I was working with my hands pressed, the top of my hands were up, the palm of my hand was on her back. And so I was working the opposite way that you work when you massage, And I think that was a blessing because it allowed me to not give too much pressure. But the feeling that I got at the time was that I wasn't massaging her, that she wasn't massaging me, but she was giving me more than I was able to give her. And it was just this unbelievably sweet exchange. And I never forgot it, and I never will. And at the end, I don't know if I helped her or not. She said I did. And so I believe her, but I felt like I got more out of it than she did. And it was one of the great treatments of my life. And I've treated many backs. But that was the best for me. And I will never forget the feeling of her skin and the softness of her and the fragility and yet the strength. It was the most amazing combination of people. And so that's who Goher was for me. I just wanted to share that little story.
Thank you, Elaine. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Go ahead, honey. I didn't mean to.
I was just finishing up. I don't know if Patrick and Sarah are still on, but
they are.
I wanted to thank them for that incredible detail. And Dr. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you. So sweet. Hashima? I'm probably saying it incorrectly. Hashima?
Yes.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. There's so many faces. Well, I studied medicine and had a chance to work with Goher at the clinic many times. And every time I had a holiday in my medical school, or in India, all the junior doctors, they keep going on strike. And every time there was a strike, I would go to Mehrabad and she would arrange for my stay, and I would spend a month or so and would get to go to Mehrabad on the days of Mehrabad and get a few hours to work at the clinic. But that's so many people have shared about that. What I wanted to share with you all was my very, very first experience, or rather my introduction to Goher. So this is in 1970s, probably in 75 or 76. I was about 9 or 10 years old, which is in my memory one of the first trips to Merazad with my parents and my sister. And my parents used to take me and my sister every year in our holidays to Mehrabad. But what was exciting was going to Merazad. So on one of our very, very first trip, I remember, and those were the days when you could spend the whole day at Merazad from morning till evening. And as children, me and my sister didn't really understand much what was going on at the Mandli Hall or what was going on at Mera's porch. So we would go there for some time, but our interest was to play. And so we would be spending lots of time in the garden and on the swing and eat the tamarinds, and that's what we did. And that's when we noticed a little bicycle, red color bicycle with a little red basket in front at the handle. And that was the time I had just learned how to bicycle. So I was very excited, and I wanted to know whose bicycle was that. I didn't know who Dr. Goher was. I mean, I must have seen, but I really didn't know who was who. So my whole interest was to find out whose cycle was that and whether I could ride that cycle. And that cycle would disappear sometimes, and that cycle would come against the wall of the porch. And finally, I came to know it was Dr. Goher's, and when we took permission, me and my sister, she very gracefully allowed us. So we would wait for her as kids to come back from her clinic, because she would ride to the clinic when she would come back for lunch. That was the time which was the best time for us, because we could get the cycle to ride all over Merazad in the garden. And that's what we kept doing year after year, and really enjoyed on a bicycle. Till one day we saw that she was on a motorized bicycle. And of course, I had never seen one like that. So it was very interesting. And that's what was my one of the first memories of having some fun at Merazad.
That is such a sweet story. Thank you. I felt like I was there. Merjoti? Merjoti, you're up if you'd like to speak.
Jai Baba, everyone.
Jai Baba.
This is a very wonderful program organized by Meher Fund. I'm very much fortunate to attend this one. Meanwhile, my net connection has gone, but still I heard everyone's experiences. My name is Mehjoti. My father's parents are very old Baba lover. My father's name is Mr. V.R. Bade. He is from Pathari, district Ahmednagar. And we have get very good opportunities to meet Baba Mandali all the time, every time, and participated so many things with our daily lifestyles and our marriages, and so many correspondence with Baba Mandali. My father used to send honey to the Baba Mandali. He collected from the town honey, and he sent to the Baba and the Mandali. What is the Dr. Ashima just mentioned that she is very much fond of this Dr. Goher, and I was another thing that I was also much fascinated at the small bicycle with a small basket, and the very there's the boy cut, and she's running from here to there and here to there. Though we are the kids, and my father used to take us my father's financial condition is not so much good, and so our summer break is only we are visiting to the Mehrabad and the Mehrazad. So the whole day we are in the Mehrazad and listening of the stories from Balnatu and all this, the Baba Mandali. And we are so much, my mother is so much close to the Mehra and Mani. So we are used to have some evening tea with the Mehra and Mani in the dining room. I personally contacted with the Dr. Goher when I was very much suffering for this the heel cracks to my legs during my teenage. And my father has used to go so many places, and we have treated from so many doctors. But somehow we are failed, and every summer or every season that the burning has come and the bleeding has come. So once time we went to this the Mehra Azad. So my father told this Erich uncle, and Erich uncle says that why don't you talk with the Dr. Goher? And we consulted Dr. Goher, and Dr. Goher gave us some ointment, and this ointment we apply for that summer and the next summer. Until today, my heel has not cricked up. So that medicine has worked till today. Another experience of that one, I was selected my field as the BSc microbiology in Ahmednagar College. I studied in Ahmednagar College, and after my BSc in microbiology, I went to the Pune to take the pathology as a diploma level. So there is the emerging field was the radiology as well. So Dr. Goher and Erich uncle and the Pendu uncle, they insisted me, you should not take the radiology. You should not take radiology at any case in your life. You should go to the pathology. After some years, after I did my pathology and the radiology and the work in the hospital in the Pune as well as in some places after my marriage, I dropped somehow after my first baby's birth, and then I did my master in history, and then I joined as a professor in the Women's University in Mumbai. And then I started to do the research, PhD on that one. So I was very much fascinated of the so many women doctors and that one. So I took the topic of women's healthcare and women physicians in the Bombay Presidency. So I covered the period from 1886 to 1947. And because I was just thinking, should I take this topic? I can do that one. So because of that one, I just wanted to ask, and I wanted to discuss with Dr. Goher, should I go on this topic or not as a doctor? But we are very much frightened to this Mandali. And Dr. Goher was she was not meeting so often, and as usual, just some money, and other Mandali was very kind, and she was always busy in dispensary and all that. So I took the permission from the trust office, and Mr. Rangole gave me the permission, and I just go in the 2003, in the 2002 December, and then I got permission to take her interview in 2003. So I sent all the questionnaires to her and all these things, what I'm thinking of that one topic and on the subjects, and what is my object and what is my objectives of this one. And it's very, very because of Dr. Goher's interview, I took this topic and I completed my PhD, and I discussed with her, and she was, her health was not good that time. She has so much limitations of that. In spite of that things, I told her, okay, if your health is not good, I will come to the next month or sometime or like that. But she was so much firm, and she told, no, Rejo, you should come like this one. And when I went, and Meru was there, then Casey was there, and they all sitting, and I just asked her so many questions, and she was talking and talking and talking, and she has relived so many stories in her life which I don't know till that time. And she has narrated how she has fascinated her as a medical profession since she was at a 9-year-old, and she has practice, or she has make a treatment on her on a small tiny girl in the Khushru powder at the age of the 9, and she has used some kitchen medicines of that, the turmeric powder, jeera, and the cumin seeds and the ginger and some, and she gave to that the 9-year when she was a 9-year-old and tiny that Irani girls, but she omitted and all that, and she has started telling so much, and this interview goes on in 2 hours, and then we had to stop. We should stop now, and that's the lunchtime is there and all that one. But these are the interview series are going on there in the June and in the till 2003 and the 2004 also. And somehow then I got this, and Dr. Goher gave me the confidence that you can do this research on this one. But she asked me one question, being as a medical, working in the medical profession, which profession you like it, whether you like the teaching profession or you like working in the medicine. So I told her, honestly, I like the work in the medicine. So she asked me, why you like this one? So I told her though the teaching profession is very good, but the medicine profession is somehow we can get this the social work or the social like that. And she asked me so many questions on the medical profession. I asked her this during my interviews and all that. And she said, why don't you do this the MBBS? So I told her, now I did a lot of study, and now it's I'm doing. I want to do this PhD, and now I totally has changed. But Dr. Goher told me that okay, then do your things, and she knows that my father's health, economic condition, and all that. She told me that Dr. Goher, will pay your medical fees and all that. Go and do the medicine and all that. So I told, no, it's not like that. When you did the MBBS, it's the medical fees are very, very less, and nowadays it's very, very high and all that. So she shared with me a lot of the experiences as a medical field, as her personal, as a Baba's contact, as a Meher Fund, and everything is that. So I am very much fortunate to talk with her and to have always we have the very much good experiences. Whenever we went, they gave us this one. On my birthday, she always gives the Baba's batch and all these things. But these are some of the experiences I would like to share with all of you. Thank you very much for giving me the permission to talk with you. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you so much for sharing your stories with us. Jai Baba. Sally and Patrick? Patrick, you're unmuted.
Jai Baba, wow. So from my first trip to India in 1972, I longed to be able to work alongside or help. And when the news came that we could assist Goher in the little clinic, like many of you have told stories about, I was chomping at the bit. And just the thought that every day I could go help out at Marazad all day in the clinic, with Goher teaching me, I just couldn't think of what could be more exciting. And so the day came and she gave me some instructions, and I must have been sitting on this low stool. I remember being very close to the ground, and there was this long line of villagers, and she said, and you'll undress this wound and then you'll clean it. And I was just so raring to go. And the first person came, and he was very, very old and extremely thin and extremely poor, and had this rag wrapped around his ankle, and I unwound it, and I took one look at that wound, and the next thing I remember, they were cleaning outside. And that was the extent of my professional medical career with Goher. And I went to India often through all these years, and I would perform in Mandalay Hall on Sundays. And the best part of that was I could go early to warm up, because it would take me 2 hours to prepare to be able to dance for 3 minutes. And Patrick and I would create these dances, as some of you know, and we especially for Mandalay Hall, and we would bounce off, literally, we would bounce off the walls and hang from the rafters and roll on the floor, and it was kind of wild and weird. And I remember, then afterwards, I remember going up to Goher, and I'd sort of kneel and waiting for my praise. And I remember her saying to me, "Can't you just be graceful?" And I don't know, maybe it was starting in 1990. I had the great fortune to start giving her massages after her lunch. And the great blessing of the sign that it was a good massage was if she fell asleep. And then she would wake up, and then I found out somehow from Shelley that she loved hard-boiled eggs. And as many of you know, that we could get a packed lunch from the Pilgrim Center or the NPR that would have a hard-boiled egg. And I started to realize that it was through being at Merazad that I started to learn the joy of being highly attentive to mundane activities that always eluded me in my regular life. It's like I could listen forever to you telling your stories about the Mandalay, as some of you know, but dealing with regular mundane life has always been difficult for me. And I remember Shelley showing me how Goher liked her hard-boiled egg to have a little snack when she got up from her nap. And so I learned how to peel it and cut it just so, and then put it on a certain plate and put a little pepper and put a little salt. And it was just such a joy. It was so exciting to serve her this hard-boiled egg and to see her relish it, because she relished it. She relished her food. And I was thinking about, in the last 10 days that we got to be with her, how every moment like that just got more and more amplified, of how, being able to be present when people were feeding her, or just, like Patrick described, when he put his hands on her and she would say, "Oh, that feels so good," or watching Shelley do some PT with her. Oh, I mean, it was remarkable. And just not just dealing specifically with Goher, but everything around her. How Shelley organized the schedule, and how generous she was. Here she could have been all alone with Goher in these last days, but instead she shared this time with so many of us, and with such poise, so that everybody felt cared for. And then I remember it must have been right when Goher was dying. There was a couple of hours where it was imminent, and only the closest people, we had all had a chance. Everybody had crowded into Mara and Mani's room, where she was lying in Mani's bed, and everybody had a chance to say goodbye, and there were many hours of singing, and it was all incredibly wonderful. And then Shelley asked everybody to leave, and except the closest caregivers. And I went out, and I saw that Pat Sumner was outside instead of inside. And I thought, why is she outside? She could be inside in this most precious of times. And I asked her, and she said, because it looked like she was standing guard against the wall in between Mara and Mani's room and the kitchen in the dining room. And she said, well, if I'm out here, it's very clear of who can go in and who stays out. And I thought, oh my God, to sacrifice that precious time out of love, for Goher and love for Baba. And
as the day went on after Goher died and the stories went, and like Patrick said, the circle got bigger and bigger, and I thought it was going to be harder and harder for me to get further and further away from Goher. And it wasn't. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger and more wonderful. And people could keep going up and bowing down to her as the stories went on. And there was no sense at that time of loss at all. It was just so joyous, and it was so uplifting, and there was such humor. And I just want it to last forever. So thank you all for telling your stories.
Jai Baba, that was just beautiful. Thank you so much. Opening our hearts. Goher is opening our hearts. Thank you. Judy?
I've been debating whether to even share what I have about Goher because of the depth of the heart shared have gone before me. But I think there's a couple of aspects I wanted to share because I think people don't know how many things Goher did in addition to all the medical side of things. For one, she was actually in charge throughout her entire life of the Pilgrim's Laundry at the old MC, at the old Pilgrim's Center at Lower Mehrabad. And she knew when the Dobiwala, the guy that did the laundry, would exchange an old tattered shirt from the village for a brand new nice Western one and so forth. Anyway, at one point she called me in Mehrabad during my early years of staying there in the early 90s and asked if that Marge Lieberon was having trouble with her visa and couldn't get back from Canada. Could I come early and take over the laundry, the Pilgrim's Laundry at Mehrabad, which of course I agreed to do that year until Marge later got back. But one of my memories of Goher actually echoes a little bit for me of something that Karen Talbot shared at the beginning so beautifully. She mentioned that Goher's first job when she came to serve Baba and actually live with him was to take care of the ducks. And she knew nothing about ducks. So she sent off, got Baba's permission, which you had to do for anything in those days, and ordered, I think it was 3 different books on ducks, so she could be well educated and inform herself so that she could interrupt the meeting that Karen mentioned where Baba was talking about the 7th plane. But it was an example that she gave that, you know, she was there with her shiny new medical degree and Baba gave her something totally out of her realm of being able to do anything. So one of the first things that happened to me when I had the good fortune to start living and working over at Mehrabad was that one day I was out at Mehrabad. It was a non-pilgrim day, and Goher called me over and said, "Judy, can you use a sewing machine?" And I thought back, oh, 7th grade homemaking. Yes, and I remember every single stitch I ever put in the 7th grade, I had to tear out and redo. And I said, yes. And thinking of the sewing machines that I grew up with, like, you know, they were electric and automatic and you know, and even that I had trouble with. But she asked and I said, yes. And she said, good. And handed me a tea cozy, you know, a big quilted cozy that they put over the teapot to keep it warm. And she handed me a piece of bright, beautiful fabric. And she said, the inside needs to be replaced. It's, you know, it was burned. And so, you know, replace this. And there's a sewing machine up, you know, on the little building opposite where all of you eat lunch. So I go over and take these things, and really she is getting my, and this is Baba, of course, the thing that I have least confidence, least ability in, pretty much anything in the universe is sewing. But of course that was the job at hand. So I went over and bravely, and it's like, oh, there it is. And actually it's occurred to me since, I wonder if that was actually Mara's sewing machine. It's likely it is, I don't actually know. At any rate, I kind of cleared away some stuff so I could work at it, and realized rather quickly that it was not electric. It was a treadle machine, which of course I had never used in my life. And I basically spent the next couple of hours working on something that might have taken somebody that actually knew what they were doing almost no time at all, and painstakingly, you know, managed to get out the old burned material and, you know, turned it inside out and worked on. Anyway, I got the job done with much frustration on my part, and I thought, oh wow, you know, because I'd been working on the new one, and the material was so pretty, beautiful flowers and bright and clear, and I thought, oh, this is so much nicer than the what's now the inside, the old material that was on the outside. So I somewhat, you know, it's like with a slight sense of victory of surviving this ordeal, take it to Goher and show it to her. And she looks at it and says, with a look that says, you idiot. And she said, you've got it inside out. Turn it right side in. It's so, you know, and it's like, anyway, that's sort of been my experience of many things at Marabad, but also with Goher of try as I may, I managed to make it rather a failure. But at any rate, that's my tea cozy story.
That's funny. I feel you.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Judy. Thank you. All right. And Paula Roper, you're unmuted.
Okay. This is a different story, and it's a recent story. A quote from Rumi that I dearly love is, "Death has nothing to do with going away. The sun sets, the moon sets, but they are not gone." Last January, I had the opportunity for a month to take care of a dear close friend who had been sick for many years, and it was her last month to be here on earth. And my job, I knew, was to say Baba's name as much as I could for her. And it was a hard job because I was the only one doing it. And so when she did go to Baba, it was beautiful. And that's a long story, but it was beautiful. And Baba did it, and she did it. Her name was Chris Elston. But afterwards, I knew how I was aware of Goher's grief. I mean, I'd read the stories, I'd heard the stories, and of course I met Goher, but, and loved her. But I knew those stories, and I was feeling that same helplessness, like I didn't do enough. I didn't say Baba's name enough. I wanted to do more. I felt like I couldn't do it. I didn't do it right. Could I, I really had all those feelings. So one night I had a dream that wasn't a dream. That was a total surprise. And in my dream, there was Goher, and her arms were out like this. And she just took me in her arms and she held me and she made it go away. She made it all right. So Baba in his compassion still shares his loved ones with us. And he still loves us through them. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Paula. It was beautiful. Well, I'd like to share something quickly. I went to India in 1985, and I very much look forward to going. And I'm a nurse, and I worked at one of the local hospitals in Virginia at the time. And we used to have these little plastic packets that the medications would come up from pharmacy. And then you'd take the medication out, and then the plastic packets would get thrown away. So I knew that Goher wanted to use those and could use those in India for the medications that she dispensed. So I started saving all these plastic packets. And and I wrote a letter to Goher all about it. I was just so excited to go and help at the dispensary. And I think I sent it by regular mail. So anyway, that's another whole story. It didn't get there until I was already back and gone, Anyway, I went, and I was in the airport, and I was with a friend on the way over, and we'd gotten to India, and he had all these packets in a suitcase, and I think he had some medicines in there. And so the guard was holding him back for some reason. You wait here, we all got to go, but you wait. And then eventually the guard was like doing other things and distracted, and my friend just picked up a suitcase and just kind of ran over to us, and off we went to come to Mehrabad and to Marazad and to meet the Mandali, and for my opportunity to meet Goher and work in the dispensary. And when I went, I have diabetes for many years, and she said, if you're sick or you get sick, you can't work here. But I went and I spent the day, and I got to do the DPTs, which were giving these little pills, sugar pills to the children, and then giving them shots for diphtheria, DP, pertussis, and I forget, so tetanus maybe, I don't know. But anyway, I gave the shots and the pills. And, it was so wonderful because I just had the opportunity to look these little children in the eyes and feel Baba's love with them. And no one cried. The whole day, no one cried when I gave them the shots, until there was one little child. And I gave him the shot, and he was so startled, and he started to cry. And I kind of went like, oh my God, and he stopped. And he looked at me like he wanted to comfort me. So it was the most astounding experience of my nursing career. And I nursed for many, many, many years. And then for Goher to, just give me that idea that I knew what I was doing in Baba's love in treating other humans was just the most priceless gift. So I'll stop there. And Jai Baba to everyone. There's still room and time for sharing if there's anyone.
Could there be typhoid?
Yes, there's always time.
Typhoid.
Go. I'm not sure who that was.
It was Jimmy Uncle, Jimmy Khan, and unmuted.
I was saying that you didn't know what T stood for. I said it could be typhoid.
Thank you. It was typhoid.
Typhoid, that's right.
Yes, thank you. All right, someone else is saying it's tetanus, but I think you're right. I think it was typhoid. Jimmy, I think you're right. All right. All right, well, this has been a most wonderful program. Thank you, everyone, for your sharings and all your outpour of love. Certainly, Baba's Goher was honored in such a beautiful way today. Jai Baba.
Jai Meher Baba.
Jai Meher Baba.
Maybe we can all unmute.
Uh-huh.
And we can say 3 Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
I don't know.
On your mark, Ruth.
All right. Avatar
Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Avatar
Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Jim.
Thank you, Circle of Friends.
Angela, this was lovely.
Thank you very much.
And it's beyond your bedtime. Get to bed.
Yes. Bombay.
You know, I happen to think, I don't know if you hear me, but in the early years, I asked Goher, did you ever worry that Bob would send you back to the world? Did you ever have to worry about that? And she said, all the time. She didn't have any guarantee that she had a permanent spot there.
Wow.
All the time. So
And it's so true. Karen shared about the time before the new life. And the women that day, there were three days of meetings that the women had before the new life and 4 that the men had, all at Mehrabad. And Baba had driven with Mera and the other women to Mehrabad and for the meeting, and it was very serious. It was held in the East Room for the women, and everyone had a little stool in the East Room. And Baba basically dropped the bombshell that he was closing the ashram and everyone would be sent back to the world except for 4 women that he would take with him on the new life. And when they went back that day, Goher was staying at Merazad at that time, and she was watering the garden and had her, you know, had her back. Baba walked up behind her, but she was thinking as she was watering, he's not going to take me. He's not going to take me. I'm like the new kid on the block. So many of course he's going to take Mera and Mani. But, you know, like Khorshed's been with him even before Mera or his cousin Nadja. He'll take them or Mera's niece. He's not going to take me. And she was really, really serious about taking her own life. She was thinking about how to kill herself because she would have to be parted from Baba. It wasn't going back to the world. It was being parted from Baba that she thought she could not endure. And that's the moment that Baba walked up and asked her, what are you thinking? And just, as Bauji so often used to say, you know, it's something like, nothing, Baba. And Baba kind of pried it out of her. And because she was absolutely at her, you know, in the worst place she could possibly be in her heart. And that's when Baba, as Karen said, you know, turned to Mera and said, Mera, tell her. And so Baba used Mara to tell her, you are going to be one of the 4 that comes with me. And that was an incredible relief to her. As Khorshid also, not only, I mean, she made very specific plans when she realized that she wasn't coming with Baba. And anyway, that's a whole other story, but it's that being with Baba was the only thing that mattered to any of them. And yeah, it was so, that was such a bombshell to the women that had spent and devoted their entire lives to being with him.
Betty Lohman had something she wanted to share. Go ahead, Betty.
Rather than be sad that I didn't share, I'll go late. We were in India in '87, and my husband Dave had a pretty serious neck injury. He was in a neck brace, and Goher zoomed right in on it. She was very attentive to him. I remember those soft hands too. She took special care to see how he was and what the problem was. And my memory, she gave us a little bottle of water that I believe that Baba's feet had been washed in. Is that possible? Would we? That's what, and why I don't remember that most specifically, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
yes,
we did bring.
They did give those kinds of bottles, Betty.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. Thanks, Judy. So she did indeed give that to Dave, and still in his neck brace when we left, but he's fine now. He went on to be Tractor Daddy up at Marana. He never did have a surgery that they were insisting he needed to have. And we were able with that, we did use that water on his neck, but we had a little left. I remember we were able to give it to a little bit to our dear friend Michaela Comerford, who had alopecia and had no hair. That was a hard thing for a little girl. And it was just a nice thing to be able to do, and she's a very happy person, and Baba's love these days. So anyway, that's my story.
Yeah, a little shout out for Karen Talbot and all those who organized, put some order to this at the beginning, and we're so grateful. Thank you so much.
Kristen, I bet you have some Goher stories. Kristen Crawford.
Thanks, Judy. I probably do, but nothing's coming to mind.
Just on a personal note, just having every person that's been on this chat together in the same chat room, as it were, today just fills my heart with joy to see so many of us that are linked so closely together in Mayor Baba's love. Today we're using Goher as the conduit of that love, but it just does my heart so good to see everyone's faces or even see their names, that they're here listening in. It's very uplifting for me.
Well, Kristen has something.
I just wanted to say one thing, that I remember commenting on Goher's soft hands, those famously soft hands, and she said to me, they're like sandpaper compared to Baba's.
Wow.
I'll also comment on Goher's generosity.
Oh, God.
And I mean that in sort of a literal way. I mean, there's so many different ways that she was generous. But the Baba provided for the Mandali when he was in the body, in the trust deed, that they would be given what in the West is a small pittance. But in India, you know, money would go further. But I was always so touched to the point of embarrassment, and we're still recording this, that I worked as part of the medical team at Mehrabad under Dr. Ann, not under Dr. Goher at Mehrabad. And she would give me a monetary gift at Christmas every year. And I make this assumption she did it for every member of the medical team. I don't know, but it was like she had so little and gave to us so much.
Wish Jimmy would talk.
One of the things I can share with y'all is the impression I had when I first met her, and subsequently to several times, was the impression I got was she was this incredibly ancient soul, very, very solid in Baba, established for ages. And she just exuded this ancient, ancient presence and wisdom. And, you know, there was no room for small talk with Goher with me. I just was awed by her presence of being so very anciently connected with Meher Baba.